Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Old Code Podcast. I am your host, the Professor. Today's topic of discussion is the fact that people are not products. This is something that has been dealt with quite extensively, especially in modernity, but I think that I would like to approach it from a slightly different angle. So before I get into the topic today, I want to remind you guys that I do have a Patreon up, so if you feel like supporting or encouraging in any way, shape, or form, feel free to either support the channel or just send me an email just expressing your interest or your encouragement or your criticism. Leave a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, any of the above. Please feel free to reach out. I really do appreciate I just appreciate you guys and being in contact with you. So, other piece of housekeeping, we're approaching 100 subscribers on YouTube, which is pretty cool. So yeah, just keep on doing your thing, and I hope that today's episode serves you well. So, to the topic at hand, people are not products. I'd like to begin this episode by telling you a story from ancient Rome. And this is the abduction of the Sabine women. If you are not familiar with the story, allow me to remind you, or to tell you it. The story of the Sabine women takes place, it's supposedly legendary. We don't know for certain, since, Romulus and Remus may have been legendary themselves. They may also have been real people. I am a bit more of a traditionalist. I'm a bit more of a legendariist. So when people are mentioned, part of me longs to believe that they actually existed. Not because I admire them, but because I long for the days when legends may have actually been real. So this story takes place right around the supposed founding of Rome in the mid-8th century BC, and mostly perpetrated by Romulus himself. Now, Rome was initially founded as a predominantly male society, since it was mostly just kind of a ragtag group of people. We can get into more in depth on the actual founding of Rome in a different episode, but that's not the point of this episode. So the point of this episode is to discuss the abduction of the Sabine women. So the Sabines were a population that was around where Rome was founded initially. And as the Romans didn't exactly have a whole lot of women themselves, the Romans decided to put on a festival, essentially, to try to attract certain women into their society, attract certain people into their society, and at a certain point, basically, during this festival, in order to say, okay, well, we need women, we're going to take women, at a certain point, they just abscond with these women in order to keep the Roman population going. You need women in order to actually progress forward in a society. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of dudes, and that doesn't exactly work out when you want a next generation of a society. So this is all from Livy, of course, the Roman historian Livy. So the Romans abscond with these Sabine women, and this causes a great deal of strife. There's about to be war. One of the wives of, actually the only wife that was abducted from the Sabine tribe, ended up actually mediating the talk. However, the point that I'm trying to get at or the lesson we can draw out of this, I should say, is that rather than viewing the Sabine women as humans, the Roman population ended up basically just viewing them as the means by which they could propel their society into a next generation. So, what can we learn from this? Why are we talking about the abduction of the Sabine women when it comes to what we can understand about modern society? So, The abduction of the Sabine women is a moral lesson that we can learn that we pretty much consistently have renewed over and over and over again. In recent years as society, the biggest example we've actually been able to see in these is the way that actually both sides tend to view the opposite sex. In recent years especially, men have begun viewing women as a badge in order to demonstrate a status symbol, while women tend to view men as a bank account, in effect. And this has actually been not necessarily over the past couple decades. Really, it started emerging over the past 100 to 200 years or so. And this really actually appeals to both fundamental desires of the actual individual sexes. Women craving security, men craving status. It's a fundamental desire of both sexes, really. Men desire to be seen as greater. Women desire to be safe, to be protected. That is not necessarily any sort of mark on who the sexes actually are. That's just a broad, sweeping generalization. So, if you're a man who doesn't crave status, if you're a woman who doesn't crave security, I'm not talking about you, apparently. So, let's break down the narrative of the Sabine abduction in light of what we see in today. So, the Romans, i.e., a group of men, are seeking to make themselves a great nation. All right? So, what do you need in order to become a great nation? You need a larger population. You need the ability to accumulate more resources. You need the opportunity to actually conquest other nations. So, in order to do that, you need more people. So them viewing themselves in terms of self-importance decide to take it upon themselves instead of wooing or loving, even, we should say, the populations surrounding them or assimilating those populations into their own. They decide to abduct a population of women for their purposes. Now, we can take this in terms of modernity as most men, viewing themselves in terms of self-importance, desire to make themselves great. They desire to make other people see themselves as great as well. So they, instead of actually becoming or wooing a woman in terms of character, they will oftentimes seduce or use trickery in order to kind of ensnare the women around them. The best example of this we can actually see is I believe it's called the lover boy tactic when it comes to seduction practices and seduction techniques. It's basically making the woman believe that they are changing them for the better, or that they are willing to get serious with this particular woman. And then effectively they're seducing them into a position rather than into a relationship. Now, another way that we do this is trophy wives. So older men tend to take younger women in order to make themselves appear greater than they actually are, more virile than they actually are. When an older man takes a younger woman, it is him declaring both to other women and to other men that this younger woman is actually his equal, in effect, in energy. There's an implicit power dynamic, and we can talk about, and we've talked about in the episode on Marxism, how hierarchies aren't always a bad thing, but the implicit power dynamic between an older man and a younger woman invites, effectively, the naive younger woman, or in effect a gold digger, which it goes back to the desire for security. In this power dynamic, what you end up having is the man declaring his status through the woman. She's not viewed as a person in her own right. She's being viewed as a product. Now, we also see this in older women more so in today's day and age. What we see is the language of cougar, in effect, where older women will pursue younger men. Now, the younger men will view the older woman as a declaration of status as well, because they're viewing the woman in light of, oh wow, she's lived this life and she wants to pursue me. The women, on the other hand, will view the younger man as their conquest and view them as a kind of a reclamation of their own youth. Both the older male and the older female will view the younger partner as a kind of a reclamation of what has been lost, whether it's status or youth, experience, all of the above. They view this as an opportunity for themselves. Now, the point that I'm trying to get at with this, and I'm attacking this from a particular angle because it's most pertinent to the story of the Sabian women. This is all in relationships. However, when it comes to the broader view that we take in society, I'll finish my thought on relationships. When it comes to relationships, we're viewing people for what we can get out of them as opposed to what we can put into the other person. Now, my definition of love is the pursuit of good. The pursuit of good for the sake of the object of love. So you are pursuing the good of the individual who is receiving love. That's a very, very basic definition, a very basic understanding, but if you get that down, you are going to love a whole lot better. And you are going to be loved a whole lot better when you find someone who loves in those terms. So when somebody is pursuing goodness and your benefit, even when it costs them something, that's love. Christ says that there is no greater love than when one person lays down their life for another. So that's a more accurate and rounded out image of what it is to actually love another person. If I'm remembering correctly, the Moists had a and I'm not comparing Mo Tzu or the Moists in comparison to Christ. I'm not saying that they are equal, but I do appreciate how they phrase it. And there's an idea of human-heartedness. So in relating to another human, you are relating in human-heartedness. So this is driving at the idea of we want to get away from this commonplace view where we're viewing humans as products. We're viewing humans as opportunities. We're viewing other people as something that we are going to benefit from, as opposed to people that we ought to be investing in and loving well. So I will be flat out honest with you. I'm not the best when it comes to human relationships. I have a very hard time loving people well, but I'm working on that, and kindness is very important when it comes to learning how to do that well. So moving onward into this argument, into this understanding, we do this all the time. We treat people like products all the time in modern society, and our culture has really started to capitalize on this cultural understanding of people as products. Now, from the very beginning of this podcast, I have tried my utmost to make it so that my personality is not the thing that is being sold or conveyed to you. I'm sure that my personality is going to be communicated and it's coming across to you. However, my personality and my identity is not the thing that I am trying to sell to you, essentially. What you see in social media a lot of the times is people being the commendation. A personality is the commendation for a product. And in that, when people are forming these relationships, these parasocial relationships through social media, what you inadvertently create is the person who is conveying the product is actually the product. This is one of the reasons why social media influencers make so much money when they get endorsement deals, is because the person becomes the packaging for the product. Over the course of media, we can see how this has evolved from a purely descriptive thing. So if you think about it, when people were selling things in newspapers or magazines, there was a visual aspect, but mostly it was a written mode, and that was because it was conveyed through the pages of a magazine or a book or a catalog or something like that. The description was really the thing that was being sold, and that was the form of the media. Once we moved on into the age of television, away from radio, even would be a oral version of the written word. Radio was selling things via sound snippets and people telling other people about this particular product. So we moved on. I apologize, getting back to TV. Once we moved on into the age of television, away from radio, away from books and catalogs and stuff like that to sell products, what you end up having is the visual media takes precedent, and therefore you have infomercials, commercials, people are selling things. You started getting celebrity endorsements along the same lines as well. Once you moved away, strictly speaking, just from commercials, you started having famous people start giving praise for a given product. And I think that's where we started seeing the transition away from simply viewing this as a visual representation of the product and more so into the parasocial relationship where the person became the product. So I hope you don't mind. I've shifted gears a little bit away from the Sabian women, but I am finally into the meat of this. So when it comes to social media, we've shifted away we haven't totally shifted away, but we've shifted gears from the celebrity endorsement where you have zero connection with the individual to the parasocial relationship of the social media influencer. So because everyone has this illusion of equal footing on social media, even if one person has, 1 million followers on TikTok or whatever, and the other person only has 100 or 20 or, something like that, because both parties are still on the platform together and you can leave a comment or something along those lines, there's an illusion of equal footing, which creates an illusion of an actual relationship, especially when creators are encouraging that relationship by saying things like, oh, I appreciate you guys so much. Now, I really do actually appreciate hearing back from you guys. This is a very, very small channel, so I can actually say that when people leave a comment, it means a lot. So, not to sound too defensive or self-aware on exactly what I'm doing, but yeah, I really appreciate when you guys do that. So just keep in mind that if you have a relationship with me as an actual relationship with me, if you are one of my friends and we interact, then that is totally distinct from the quote-unquote relationship that creator and consumer has. Now, back to the topic at hand. We, in our society, have created an illusion where, because there is a relationship between creator and consumer, when the creator says something about a given product, the product is not the thing being sold. The product is the thing that is being received, but ultimately the influencer or the creator is the one that is the actual product. So they're the packaging surrounding what is being received, which is the product. It's kind of similar if you have ever studied cooking or if you've ever studied presentation or something like that. We eat with our eyes first. And if we don't have something that looks good surrounding the thing that we're about to eat, we're not going to want to eat it. So all that to say, let's get back to the application for this entire principle. When we view people as products, we diminish their humanity. When we go onto social media, or when we go out on a date with somebody or view somebody through a particular lens and think, how can I get something from them? That is doing a disservice to the human nature. It is viewing a human in light of something that they were never meant to be viewed in light of. And really, when we start to examine what we do in our culture, we've done away with a lot of forms of slavery, but we have made ourselves a slave to these forces and these ideas that govern us, where really we are slaves to ideas now, and we're slaves to systems. And I'm not just talking about wage slavery. I'm talking about we are in complete dependence upon social validation from people who do not even know our names. And really in that, and also we reciprocate this relationship. We then try to cash in on our 50 seconds of fame or 20 minutes of fame or however long it is. We try to make ourselves famous in turn. When we view the success of people like Mr. Beast or, content creators who have millions and millions of followers, we then turn around and try to do the exact same thing and view the people that we can cash in on as products. So I recognize that my presence on social media and my conveying this message to you is very dicey, because I am very self-aware of the fact that I would like to spread this message to other people. I am very self-aware of the fact that I do not like social media, and I do not like the fact that those who run social media tend to view those who are present on it as products to be sold, their information to be sold, I should say. I am very self-aware about all of this. And so if there's one encouragement that I can give to you, it's just that try to get off of social media. Try to, I believe the term is touch grass. Go outside. If you are in a relationship with somebody, double check your heart and make sure that you're not just pursuing the relationship because of something that you can benefit from. Try to love people well. Seek after the benefit of their good as opposed to your own good. And that's really something that I want to encourage you to learn how to do, is love selflessly, love without agenda, care for people, and don't abscond with people like they're your product. And don't try to sell yourself like you're a product. You're not a product. Don't view yourself as a product. To view yourself as a product is, like I said, it's diminishing the humanity and the nature of the human nature. So I hope that this episode serves you well. I hope that this episode left you with something to think about, and I hope you are doing well. I really am. If you liked this episode, please subscribe on Spotify or YouTube, whatever you're listening to. I hope that you are doing well, and yeah, that's really all I got for you today. Be well, and this is the Professor. Bye for now.